Now, you know that Lag BaOmer is a special day. It's a happy day. It's a tremendously happy day. Right in the middle of a day of a time of mourning. We know that during Sfiras HaOmer, we don't cut our hair, we don't listen to Shachiyanu, and we don't listen to music and all these things because we're mourning a sad time. We're mourning the passing of the Talmid of Akiva. And then suddenly comes Lag BaOmer, and Lag BaOmer is this like amazing, lichtige, exciting, happy day, plunk in the middle of all the mourning. So what is the reason for this great joy of Lag BaOmer? Why are we celebrating? Why are we celebrating Lag BaOmer? There's two reasons that we celebrate Lag BaOmer, right? Yeah, two reasons. Mm-hmm. One is that
Talmid Rabbi Akiva stopped passing away.
And the other is okay. So we have two things that we're celebrating. Okay, one is the end of a negative thing, and one is although we might think that the passing of Tzaddik is also negative, he said that his passing, he wants it to be a hilula comes to a chasana. It should be a celebration. It should be a happy time, and we celebrate actually the day of the passing. So it's one thing which is the end of something negative, and the other which is something positive. Now, you know what's ironic? Mighty ironic.
It doesn't have to be an loudspeaker.
Why is it Mushki, why is it something positive if you passed away?
Because he asked that the day of his passing should be a hilula, should be a celebration, and that is, we're going to talk about in a minute, is because the day of his passing is when all of his Teirosei, Avedosei, Ma'asav came to its shleimus, came to its its completion, its peak. And that's why he saw it as a very positive day, and a day where we can tap into that energy. Okay? Everything that he represented reached its epitome on that day. Okay, so really it's actually very, very, very ironic because Rabbi Akiva built up, he always started learning Aleph at 40 years old. So if anyone thinks that we're late, we're still good. He started learning Aleph at 40 years old. And he went on to learn so much Torah that he built a huge empire of Talmidim, of Chassidim. And he had 24,000, now we know. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 Talmidim. And they pass away during this time of Sfiras HaOmer. And their Magefa stops on Lag BaOmer. And from 24,000 students, what does he have left? 5 Talmidim. 5 Talmidim. Tragic, very tragic. 5 Talmidim left. And of these 5 Talmidim, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is one of them. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, we celebrate on Lag BaOmer the fact that he survived the Magefa. And then his Yochai is on that very same day, years later.
Yes.
It is quite strange, isn't it?
Yes.
How do these two reasons end up being celebrated on the same day? The day that Magefa stopped and he and 4 of his colleagues survived, and then it is his own Hilula on that very same day. So on one hand it's extremely ironic and it seems to be contradictory and it seems to be opposite. But in truth, obviously, it has to be the very, very, very same Nakuda, and it has to be that the ending of Magefa and the Hilula of Rashvi is the same Nakuda, the same message. Because as we know in Yiddishkeit, a day contains a koyach, contains a power, and things which happen on the same day are representing the same koyach and the same power. So what point is it that the ending of Magefa, the surviving of these 5, and his Hilula have in common? Hilula, his celebration, his yahrzeit. He requested that his yahrzeit should be a Hilula. Also, just like, why of all the Tanoim, of all the Tzaddikim, of all the generations, only Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai do we celebrate? Yes. Do we celebrate, I mean, I know we do yahrzeit with Licht and whatever, but do we celebrate any other Tzaddik, Tana, yahrzeit like that? Mm-hmm. The piyutim and the songs and Tana, Elakai, and his Halak, and the praises that we give it,
Yes.
The Yiddishkeit that we have today
is
only because they survived to continue teaching Torah.
Yes.
Had those 5 not continued teaching us Torah, what would we have? would end, obviously it can't end
Yes.
Yochai, but
Oh,
you get the idea.
yeah.
Like this is the Messiah was passed down through this line of passing down Messiah. Sorry, anyways, not much time. Moving on. Okay, so here we go. Two things we're celebrating on that day, and although they do seem ironically contradictory or opposite, they're actually the very, very same message. And before we discuss a little further, just to point out that the passing of a tzaddik, and particularly Rosh Yochai, a tzaddik's life is not his physical life. Okay, a tzaddik's life is not his bread and water. A tzaddik's life is his emunah, his ahava, his yira. Okay, this is who he is. A tzaddik lives on his neshama level. His neshama just happens to be residing in a guf for the time being, not that has to deal with the world. But a tzaddik is his emunah, his ahava, and his yira, which is why the Torah tells us about Yaakov Avinu lo meis. I mean, they embalmed him, okay? But no, Yaakov Avinu lo meis. David HaMelech shel chai v'kayom. Yeah?
Yes.
Certain tzaddikim, the Torah talks about them as living on because their Torah lives on. Their message lives on. The emunah, the yira that we learn from them lives on. So as long as the koyach of that tzaddik is still felt in the world, their life is very much there with us. Okay? Even in the shoftim, in times of the shoftim, the Torah tells us how long the shofet lived for, and then it tells how many years the shofet ruled for. And sometimes the Torah gives him a time of ruling, his rulership, his leadership, extended 20, 30, 40 years after his lifetime. 1 second, if he passed away, why is he still a shofet? Because as long as the Plishtim were afraid of him, and as long as the Yidden kept their emunah strong because of him, it was as though he was still their shofet. Okay? So a tzaddik's yahrzeit, the day of the tzaddik's histalchus, is not an end. It is a climax, a peak. It is a climax of all of Todasav, Masav, Avodasav, and Todasav. His actions, his avodah, and his Torah. All that he stood for, all that he represented, comes to a climax on that day. So when we say the Lag BaOmer is Hilula of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, it's his yahrzeit, his salvos, we don't mean that is the end of his life. What we mean is this day represents his life.
Mm-hmm.
His legacy.
Everything that he stood for. Not just legacy in the sense of like the message that we take, but in a very real way. Everything he stood for comes to a amazing shleimus on this day. And this day, every year, as that day comes back, that shleimus of his avodah is refelt in the world. We have the opportunity on his yahrzeit to tap into his message, to take to heart what he has stood for. Okay, fine. So that is the Hilul of Tzaddik. Fine. So now let's go into the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, what the problem was. The Gemara tells us why, what happened that they were nifter. And the Gemara says that Chaf Daled Ela Talmidim Rabbi Akiva Lo Yinahagu Kavod Zeh LaZeh. They did not behave with kavod to each other. Okay? Now, I just want to make it very, very clear that Hashem does not punish us with magefas. Okay? Just to get it very clear. It's not that they were naughty and they didn't have kavod, so Hashem says, well, because you can't treat each other nicely, rah. You know? Sorry, that's not what happens, okay?
Okay.
We have a mezuzah on the doorpost, yeah? And the mezuzah we know is a protection, it's a shmirah, yeah? Good. When you hear a maaseh that somebody was unwell and da and had a ganeva, and the mezuzah was found to be puzzle. Okay, did the puzzle mezuzah cause the ganeva or the illness or whatever?
No, that's a good one.
Did the puzzle mezuzah cause it? No.
No.
Because if that's the case, I don't want to have mezuzah on my door. Okay? No. Puzzle mezuzahs do not cause problems. We live in a world of tov and ra. Since Adam Rishon Eifnei Tzadas, he chose to mix ra into this world. This world is kol ra, there is evil in the world. It's a fact. I'm sorry. Okay? Until Mashiach comes and the evil gets eradicated, there is evil in this world. Okay? However, Hashem in His loving kindness gave us Torah and mitzvahs. Torah and mitzvahs connect us to Hashem. A side effect of Torah and mitzvahs, besides the fact they connect us to Hashem, they're also a tremendous shmirah. Torah and mitzvahs keep us strong against that Ra. Ra cannot attack us when this Torah and mitzvahs being kept strong. It's not that the Apostle Mezuzah caused the Geneva or caused the illness, chas v'shalom, because I don't want a mezuzah. Is that the kosher mezuzah protects against magevas and illnesses which are a fact of life. David HaMelech,
Yes.
the Malchus couldn't catch him because he was so busy learning Torah. Rabbi, Rabbi, the Malchus couldn't catch him because he was so busy learning Torah. And then what happened? They had to, the Malchus distract him, so he should stop for a second and make something happen. And like, as the story goes, yeah. So did that stop? Sorry, did that not learning cause him to die? No. Death exists in the world because of Adam Rishon. Okay. The only thing is the Torah is such a strong shmirah that as long as he knew the word Torah, it couldn't get to him. You get the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. As in, I don't want us to start to think that they were punished with a mageva for what they did.
So what? Yeah.
Mageva exists.
Oh, they were missing that.
The Achdus would have prevented the mageva. No, magevas exist in this world. We live in a world of Ra. Okay. As beautiful as the world is, it's not a jungle. It's a garden.
Mageva only hit them. It didn't hit any other people.
Okay, magevas happen, yeah.
No, why did it
Just
hit
like
the Talmidim?
Just like there's death in the world, mageva in the world is.
Now Mageva's hitting all different types of people.
Don't know. What I'm trying to say is that
we're living more in a Hester.
The Achdus could have prevented it, as opposed to the Lo Nago covered caused it. 24,000 Talmidei Akiva. Why they passed away? Lo Nago covered zelazeh. They lacked respect for each other, and because they didn't behave with respect for each other, they had a terrible mageva. And only Rishon Yochai and 4 other Talmidim survived. Really? Does that sit well with you? That Talmidei Rabbi Akiva didn't have respect for each other? Amar Rabbi Akiva. How's it go? V'yahavta l'recha kamoicha zeh klal gadol b'Torah. His motto, what he stood for, was Ahavas Yisrael. Okay? His big thing in life was Ahavas Yisrael. Everything he taught was the klal gadol b'Torah. The whole Torah boils down, huh?
When did he teach us? After all the Talmidim were lifted, or?
I believe beforehand, but it's irrelevant whether it's before and afterwards. This is his to know his path. It's a very good question, actually. I wonder when he taught it. Pass me the pen for a second. Thank you.
Was it as a result of what happened?
I don't think so, but it's a very good question. Okay, he was somebody who taught Ahavas Yisrael. He stood for Ahavas Yisrael. If the Torah calls them Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, it means that they were his students in the very truest sense of the word. The Torah doesn't give the title Talmidim just because they happen to wear the same levush as him. You know, I don't think it was so tiny. I think it was very pnimi. You know, they took in his message, his life message. They didn't just follow his minhagim. Okay?
Yeah.
They were Talmidim in the truest sense of the word. I mean, the Torah calls them Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. The Torah attributes them to him. The Rabbi Akiva that taught me how to react to the klal gadol b'Torah. And if you learn Al Pi Chassidus, that means that the whole Yiddishkeit boils down to Ahavas Yisrael, and that every single mitzvah has to do. Ahavas Yisrael has to do with valuing a person's nefesh over their guf. This is Chassidus, yeah. That a person, Ahavas Yisrael means that you see a person for their neshama, you value a person for their soul level, not for their externalities, and the entire Yiddishkeit, any mitzvah you pick, is all about valuing the neshama over the body. And therefore, if you can master Ahavas Yisrael, if you can manage to see a person on soul level, then all the mitzvahs come easy to you. And if you struggle with Ahavas Yisrael, if you struggle seeing a person on a soul level, then all the mitzvahs will be a challenge to you. That's Al Pi Chassidus, a Perek Mesopotamia, what it means that Ahavas Yisrael is klal gadol b'Torah. Okay? So he is teaching Ahavas Yisrael. He's teaching that the key to the entire Torah mitzvahs is Ahavas Yisrael. And I hope his Talmidim, being called Talmidim by the Torah, got that message. And yet they couldn't have covered Zazeh. What is going on here? Okay. Clearly, they had Abbas Yisrael.
They did.
Okay? But do you know what the problem was, Rabbi? They had too much Abbas Yisrael. They had so much Abbas Yisrael. They loved each other so much.
They felt the need to tell each other off.
Absolutely. Because if I really cared about you, yeah, I wouldn't let you make mistakes. If I really cared about you, I wouldn't let you learn the hard way. If I really cared about you, it would bother me if you were doing the wrong thing. In my opinion, the wrong thing.
Control of it.
Okay?
Yeah.
When I come from Australia, and in Australia, the attitude is, whatever floats your boat, and, you know, live and let live, and don't bother anyone, and, you know, we whatever floats your boat, that's how it goes in Australia. Yeah. The Talmidei Rabbi Akiva had so much Ahavas Yisrael that they wouldn't put up with their friend not doing things perfectly. They needed to make sure that all of their friends understood exactly what Rabbi Akiva meant and followed his teachings exactly the way he taught it. Each one needed that their colleague should be just as good a chassid as they. Are all people alike?
No.
Do we all understand the same teachings alike?
No.
One person has a neshama from chesed, one person has a neshama from gevura. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, different psukim, different tenuas. Why? Is one right and one wrong? No, not one's right and one wrong. Two different neshamas, two different tenuas in life, okay? People are different. There's Yud Beis Shvatim. There's Yud Beis Drachim to Hashem. There's not one derech to Hashem. I know you don't like this one. There's not one derech to Hashem.
No,
there's many ways to Hashem. And one Talmud, or one group of Talmidim, have a neshama from the Kav Chesed. And they understand everything Rabbi Akiva taught them. They take it exactly the way he taught it, but with a strong feeling of Chesed. And when they meet their Gevura friends, who are understanding Rabbi Akiva's teachings in the Gevura fashion, they can't handle it. Because their friend got it wrong. Their friend's missing out on the truth. We need to show them the truth, shine the light. And they impose on their friend their way of understanding. And they cannot respect their friend as long as their friend doesn't get what they get. And as long as their friend will not keep it the way they keep it. Because they love their friend so much, chas v'shalom, their friend should miss out on life. And really, that's good, because if you feel a truth, if you know a truth, and you love someone, you want to share that truth. You don't keep good things to yourself. So compliments to them when they're strong Ahavas Yisrael. You want to take it one step further. What else did Rabbi Akiva stand for?
Torah.
Yeah. Tell Rabbi Akiva that Kol Yomai, Gemara Brachos, Kol Yomai Yisei Mizdar, all my life I was pained with the question, with the longing. Mosai Yova Lidei Bakimeno. When will I have the chance to have mysterious nefesh? To give my life to Kiddush Hashem. Okay? Or Rabbi Akiva's life dream, his big aspiration in life, was to be able to give his life for Hashem. To be able to be Mekayim, the pasuk from his parashah in Dashti, Zichron Yisrael, yeah? To give his life for Hashem. That's what he was mitzvah his whole life. Which means that aside for being so focused on Ahavas Yisrael, he was a man of mysterious nefesh. Do you know what mysterious nefesh does to a person? It takes over their entire being head to toe. Their nefesh, their entire self is completely taken over. Why? Because a person has wills and has desires and has opinions and has plans and has family and has friends and has loads of things going on in life. When a person has mysterious nefesh, it means everything aside for Hashem's sake. Right? Isn't that what mysterious nefesh is? Everything aside for Hashem's sake. They got from him this shnua, this feeling of mysterious nefesh. And they were willing to have Ahavas Yisrael to the point of mysterious nefesh, where the Ahavas Yisrael took over their whole being and their whole selves. So you can imagine what fanatical extremists they were. In a good way. They were really holy. They were really from. But when you see a yid, Chavi, when you see a yid who's extreme, you can they're extreme, or you can say, wow, look how seriously they take their Rab's teachings. Look how seriously Hashem matters to them. But obviously there's a problem with such extreme, we have to know what the problem is. Because obviously there wasn't Magay and they did pass away. Wow. Okay? Now, we know that it's very, very important not to be two-faced. You cannot have echad b'peh ve'echad b'leiv. You cannot feel one way and speak the other way. But even the Shvatim who sold Yosef at Tzaddik were complimented on the fact that they weren't two-faced. Okay?
They did that, yeah.
They did what they felt. So they were real people with such Ahavas Yisrael, with such Meshur's Nevesh, that they made sure that their friend followed exactly what they understood, and therefore they couldn't respect their friends. They couldn't respect their friend's derech. They couldn't respect that their friend has a different way of understanding Rabbi Akiva, which is valid. They felt that only their understanding was valid. Now that was where the error came in. What caused that error? What caused them to lack the respect that they had so much Ahavas Yisrael? And how was Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai different when he survived and that his day is Lag BaOmer? Okay, so there's two tenuas. Are you familiar with the words Rotzai and Shuv classes?
Yeah.
Okay. Rotzai comes from the word Rotzai, desire. Rotzai comes from the word going forward, to run towards it, yeah, with desire, passion, to desire and want to connect to Hashem, to cleave to Hashem. Rotzai is that passion of wanting to cleave to Hashem. The desire to not to detach from the physical and to become spiritual. The desire for the neshama to leave the body and connect back to Hashem. The desire for what we call klois hanefesh. When people behave in a very spiritual manner, which is not at all associated with worldly life, people become perushim and they learn Torah and Daven and they don't deal with the world at all. Or they become very mystical, very holy, they meditate for long hours, they do hisboidus or hisboinanus or whatever type of avodah they're doing. These avodas are called rotzai, okay? Rotzai is good. It's very, very holy, okay? Holy people have loads of rotzai. Who had too much rotzai without any shuv was the sons of Aharon, Nadav and Avihu.
Yes.
Nadav and Avihu, they set up the Mishkan, and they are kohanim, and they're so excited to serve in the Mishkan, and they come with ketoires, which is the holiest korban, and they come into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to cleave to Hashem, to connect to Hashem. They're so excited to connect to Hashem, too excited, and then Hashem literally leave them. They weren't punished. It was a natural cause and a natural effect. The neshamas left out of excitement. We have a story with the Baal HaTanya, yeah? When he was in his early years, he had a chavrusa with the Midrash Maggid son, Rabbi Malach. Yeah, Rabbi Malach was a very hidden child of the Maggid, and he was very into Chassidus, secret of the Torah, and they had a chavrusa where this Rabbi Malach, who was called Malach because he managed to conduct himself in a very halakha oifel. This Rabbi Malach would teach the Baal HaTanya Chassidus, teaching of his father the Maggid, and the Baal HaTanya would teach Gemara to Rabbi Malach. They had a
Exchange.
yeah. And after one of their deep Chassidus classes, which you can imagine the level of Chassidus they were learning, yeah, they were so excited. The Baal HaTanya was so excited. He went and he took a bagel and he put butter and he ate a bagel with butter. And Rabbi Malach was so offended and so disgusted. And he said, after learning such deep inyanim, after such an amazing, intense shir, all you can think about is a bagel, noch mit butter. Like, what's wrong with you? You know, you can't handle just the bagel. You need the butter as well. Ligan taivas. You know, what's going to come over you? And the Baal HaTanya explained to him, he said, look, you're a malach. You can deal with these lofty things and not pass out from it. But myself, I was getting so excited, my neshama was flying so high, that had I not grounded myself with something physical and tangible, and it's so tangible that it has to, have butter on it, I wouldn't have managed. My neshama would have left me. Okay? It's something called klois hanefesh, the desire to connect to Hashem in a very deep way. Yeah? We're speaking, you did nefesh avarachaman, yeah? That song is a song of klois hanefesh, of desiring to connect to Hashem. So that's rotzai. Rotzai is this intensity. Okay, intensity of spirituality. Then you have shuv. What does shuv mean? To return, sorry?
Yeah, return. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
No, that's what.
Shuv means to return, to come back down here. Yes, it's amazing to connect to Hashem, it's amazing to be spiritual, it's amazing to be holy. There's something called shuv. There's something called being grounded. Not because we're materialistic and we're mundane and we like to be grounded and get a life and balance out. We don't mean that. What we mean is that Hashem wants mitzvahs to be done in Olam Hazeh HaGashmi. Most of the 613 mitzvahs have to do with details of your pots and pans and the tiny little bag of the lettuce and exactly what type of mum the animal has and exactly what type of, is it a minute after Shkia or a minute before Shkia, and exactly, yeah?
It's also because a ball, for example, can't bounce if it doesn't come on the floor first, so we need that.
Yes, very much so, we need shuv, okay?
Yeah.
Most of the mitzvahs deal with the mundane, deal with the physical world, because our job is not to be in a shama, put into a body, and then to deny the body and to transcend the body. That's not the point of life. The point of life is that we're in a shama, put into a body, to use the body to work with the world. Our job is to elevate the world, to take all that klippus and and to use it for Hashem. We're Hashem's ambassadors to planet Earth. We're not Hashem's ambassadors to planet Earth to only want to go back home to our country in Shamayim with Hashem. We're ambassadors here to do something here. You know? Imagine if the US ambassador to UK was always taking holidays back to US 365 days a year. He'd be pretty useless, right? The ambassador has to stay in his host country and be piled, do something there, you know, while at the same time not losing his alliance and his identity with his own country. Correct?
Yes.
We are Hashem's ambassadors to planet Earth. Our job is not to deny the earth and run away from the earth. Our job is to deal with the earth, transform the earth, bring Hashem's message to the earth, while not losing our alliance and our identity with Hashem. Okay? Shuv. Rotza, yes, be connected, be excited, be wanted to, but shuv, bring it back down. It's all about how we're bringing Hashem into this planet Earth. That's Rotza, that's shuv. Okay? Got the concept of Rotza and shuv? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Too much Rotza without enough shuv is not very good. A girl in STEM going onto the bus I was in Svat, yeah, so one of the girls in Svat gets into the bus to Yerushalayim, and you can buy a ticket one way, yeah, and you can buy a ticket haloch hazar, yeah. Yeah. So she's a bit struggling with her Ivrit, so she asked the bus driver for a ticket Rotza V'shuv. Shine. So these Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva has such a strong dedication to his teachings, to everything he taught them, to the Havas Yisrael, from the Serious Nefesh, but because they were students, they were one step down. They didn't have the ability to settle that emotion into this physical world. You find often with your own students or your own children that, especially young children or teenage children, you'll tell them something, you'll tell them a truth, and they will take the truth a little bit further than you ever intended. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it gets a bit uncomfortable because you tell a child the truth, but you have the maturity to know that truth has its parameters and applies here and not there. And just because this is the truth doesn't mean you have to shout it in your face. And you know when you're walking with your child and the child very loudly on the street, why she not sneeze? And you're like, shush. But mommy, you told, hello, shush. She's not my child. Why is he not wearing a yarmulke? Well, you taught your child the truth, right?
Yeah.
But your child takes the truth all the way without realizing that it needs to settle in the world. Yeah? Because they don't have the maturity yet.
Yeah.
So they didn't tell me them, they took his truths, they took it all the way. Okay, now Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had that shuv very strongly. Had that shuv very strongly. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, unlike the other Talmidim, where they're the obviously strong to the degree they couldn't respect each other, he had all that intensity of Rabbi Akiva. In fact, he probably had more intensity than the other Talmidim because he was the greatest Tana of all. Yet, he managed to integrate that into the world. We're going to see that in a minute. We see that the passion, the rotza without shuv of Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim is expressed in the Gemara. Again, the Gemara Yochai says, "V'chulan meiso," they passed away, because they didn't behave with respect to each other. V'haya ha'olam shameim, and the world was left desolate. Get the words? The world was left desolate. With all their spirituality and all their following his teachings, they ignored the reality of the world, the mundane existence. They didn't bring all of that back into day-to-day life. They didn't know how to integrate their holiness and their learning back into practical. Which, after all, we have to make sure we do that, right? We have to make sure we integrate things into the practical.
Didn't Rabbi Akiva teach it too?
Okay, so they missed out on that bit. So Rabbi Akiva actually was somebody who, it says, Arba ar nichnasul pardes, right? 4 people went into the orchard of Torah, meaning the secrets of the Torah, and 3 of them, whatever, and only Rabbi Akiva nichnas b'shalom v'yatsa b'shalom. You heard this before, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. 3 of them, what happened? I don't know their names. Maybe one of you know their names. Shouldn't be hard to find them in Gemara, but one of them passed away. You know, Arba nichnasul pardes, and Rabbi Akiva came out whole. Who didn't? One lost his life. He had close nefesh from his intense rocks of action, like the sons of Aaron, not of you. One of them went crazy, as in he became a shigga, because of the intensity of the revelation of Kedusha, without knowing how to integrate that intensity. Like, when a person has a very intense experience, and they don't have tools to integrate it, they can literally go crazy.
You see people, and sometimes, they take it too far.
Yeah.
And then the third one became an Epikyrus. Maybe that must be Akiva. But the third one became an Epikyrus because you have the names?
Yeah.
Soon. Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Elisha, Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Rabbi Akiva.
Okay.
So it wasn't Yochai. Unless Elisha is Elisha.
Elisha ben Akiva.
Yeah.
Okay, so these people, they had their things, okay? Only Rabbi Akiva, what was he? Nichnas b'shalom, v'yatsa b'shalom. He also delved into the secrets of the Torah. He also went very, very deep. But he went very deep, b'shalom, nichnas, he went in, with the intention of shalom. With the intention of making this peaceful, making this manageable, integrating it. And because he went in with the right intentions, Yatsa b'shalom. He came out unharmed, unscathed, able to integrate his experience. Okay? He went extremely holy, extremely lofty, extremely spiritual, delved into the greatest secrets, but with the intentions of grounding it. Okay? That's why he was Yatsa b'shalom. I'm just wondering, I never read this anywhere, but I'm just assuming and wondering, maybe you agree with me or don't agree with me. Shabtai Tzvi, we all know about Shabtai Tzvi historically, he was a false messiah, and he fooled the 4,000 Hashem Tov, and he led many people astray. He was very into Kabbalah. Young Shabtai Tzvi, before he did all his crazy stuff, did he intend to go off? Did he intend to convert to Islam? Did he intend to become a false messiah? Did he intend to do all these weird things? Mistanished. I don't know. I think not. I think he was a sincere younger man, sincerely wanting to learn Kabbalah, and he just took it a little bit too far and didn't know how to integrate it. So he went crazy, literally crazy. You know?
Balance.
Yeah, and there wasn't help to deal with his mental health issues that he was able to settle it properly. No, really, I mean it, for real. And it overtook him, and he didn't have a way to balance it out. And he was extremely charismatic. He was extremely powerful. He had a huge following. He was an awesome man. But he had his major issues. I don't think he intended badly. When Rabbi Akiva delved into the secrets of the Torah, he did so intentionally. Not that he wanted to become spiritual and removed from the world. He did it intentionally, that he wanted to relate his spiritual findings to the physical world in order to improve the world around him. Now we see with Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai that when he left the cave after 12 but then 13 years, in the cave he was very much in a ratzo state. He didn't keep any mitzvahs. He didn't say Shema even. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai did not just stop learning Torah even to say Kriyas Shema. He didn't have a matzah. He didn't have a little esrog. He had nothing. Okay?
But why not Shema?
Because his learning Torah accomplished what Shema couldn't accomplish. All of the spiritual accomplishments that a person does through doing a mitzvah connects us to Hashem, he had made all those connections through his learning. That's not normal life.
So
that's intense, crazy ratzo. Okay? But when he finally came back into the world, came out of the cave, his son, Elazar, looked at things and burnt them up out of great intensity of ratzo, not being able to handle the world. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, wherever his son gazed and burnt up, he gazed and repaired.
First they had to go back for a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he needed that extra time. Then he turned to him and said, how can I help you? How can I fix the world? He was looking to fix the world around him, even though he'd been learning the secrets of Torah 13 years. And they said there's a derech, there's a path that Kohanim cannot walk on because we don't know if it's Tam, if it's Tahar. And he clarified the Tara status of that path and allowed Kohanim to walk on that path. Okay? He helped people. He saw a man carry around with 2 hadassim, and the man said, one's for Zachar, one's for Shamar. And he said, wow, that's beautiful. Look how this man, his own very physical, very mundane way, is able to bring respect to Hashem. And he was able to see that even this man who didn't know Torah at all, and really lacked that Ratzi B'chlal, his shuv was so beautiful. So he was someone who was able to integrate that. Furthermore, we find with Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai that many Tanoim were tremendous in their Torah learning. Many Tanoim were tremendous in halacha, meaning they were authors of the Mishnah. And many Tanoim were tremendous in their Kabbalah, okay, mentioned in the Zohar. And then you have Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who on one hand was a tremendous Tana in halacha. He was able to teach so much Torah and be mentioned so many times in the Mishnayos. And on the other hand, he brought us the Zohar. Pnimius HaTorah is his, you know. He revealed it to us. So we have how he manages to, on one hand, be extremely intensely spiritual, extremely intensely. He was a very kanoisha man, you know. I mean, why did he have to go into the cave b'chlal? Because people compliment, some other Tanam were complimenting the Romans, saying these lovely Romans, they built us bridges, they built us roads, and he goes, yeah, they did everything for their own self, whatever, you know. They built bridges to get faster to the Zionists, that's what he said about them. Can you imagine how offended they were, right? He was a very kanoisha man, and because of that, he had to run into the cave and hide, right? He had to protect himself against Roman persecution. So it's not like he was, you know, balanced and worldly. Not at all. He was extremely intense and extremely passionate and extremely spiritual. But all of that intensity and all of that passion was grounded and was for the sake of affecting the world and was focused on bringing it back down. Okay. What's just to wrap up kind of thing? What are two very powerful things that I've learned from this, right? One is the idea of kavod zarazeh, of we should be passionate in our derech. We have a Messiah, yeah? We have a Messiah, we have teachings, we have a way of life, okay? Each of us our own, what we were taught. And you should be passionate in your own hagim, and you should be passionate in your Messiah, and you should be very, very, very strong in your values and your opinions and all the things that you were given, okay? Not to lose the intensity for a second, but with all that passion, with all that dedication and intensity, to be able to have kavod zarazeh, to respect that another person has a different derech to Hashem, equally valid. And it's not that there's only one path to Hashem. There's chesed, there's many different paths. You know, you're based shvatim, and not that you're going to respect the other one. It's not about giving space to other people and being nice. Yeah, it's a real thing. It's about knowing that you are 1,000% correct and your path is 1,000% strong, and that doesn't mean that someone else's path isn't, and that they can be serving Hashem in their way. That's one thing to learn, and the other thing to learn is the idea of everything that we do, all of our efforts to become close to Hashem have to be focused on this physical world. Have to be focused on what am I actually doing for Hashem down here. Hashem doesn't gain very much from you being spiritual. You know, it's very nice to be spiritual, it feels very good. But Hashem doesn't gain very much from it. Hashem wants me to be active, to be changing things, to be working with His world. What am I doing for another person? What am I doing for the world around me? How am I contributing? Okay? Am I being nice to another person? Am I being you know? And that's always a question to ask ourselves is my mundane life mundane and my ruchniistic life ruchni? Or am I able to integrate, to take the ruchnias and bring it back down here? Anyways, just to end off with the last few exciting words, that I find it amazing to think about Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and Lag BaOmer, yeah? we don't celebrate any other Tanas, Yarasai, Ahilim, Hilullah. It's not something we do, okay? There's many tzaddikim in the world. But Omer Ashir Mayachai, I find it amazing, and I think it's Dafka because this was who he is, Dafka because he's a person who's all about bringing things down to us. What do we, normal, regular people, have to do with a Tana Elokai? Like, he's so Halik. But because all his eloquence and all his excitement was all about coming back down to this world, therefore it does matter to us. Because his whole thing was to reach us. They wanted rain. They went to him. And he taught Torah, and the Torah brought rain. Like, he was all about how Torah interacts with the world. The Zohar that he taught us, yeah? What is Pnimius HaTorah? It's all about how the neshama of everything around you, all the physical things, is all really just Hashem. He was all about building those bridges between Gashmius and Ruchmius, about blending it all together. And that relates to us normal people. It's not about going up there, it's about bringing it back down. And that's why we all celebrate his day. Now the other Tanoim said about him, Mon Pnei Adon Havaya Dorashbi. Like, listen, what is the face of Hashem? The face of God is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Hello? How can they call their Rav the face of Hashem? They called him Shabbos. They gave him praises and shvachim no'uraim, the kind of praise you only give to Hashem. Because he wasn't his own existence. He was a tzaddik who simply allowed godliness to shine through him. He was transparent in that sense that his neshama, he was an expression of Hashem in this world. Calling him the face of God wasn't an insult to Hashem. Mon Pnei Adon Havaya. I mean, come on. He doesn't get better than, and because he wasn't his own sense of self, not even a spiritual sense of self. It was all about just expressing Hashem. What is Hashem? It's all about bringing the two together, building that connection.
But why don't we hear how he got there?
So we
only hear someone special. How did he do that?
So
how did he balance? How did he refine himself?
We are not expected. It's a very good question. We're not expected to become a Rishon Bar Yochai. The tzaddikim gemurim are very few. Okay, he was b'nei aliyah, was in gemurim, very few people. We can learn from him. Now, in the parak of Tanya, which discusses tzaddikim, he is brought as the example of the absolute tzaddik.
Absolute what?
Of the absolute tzaddik. And it says two amazing things. It says there's two character traits that an absolute tzaddik has. Okay, one character trait of an absolute tzaddik is that he combines the spiritual and physical. He transforms the world, which exactly is what he did. And the other character of a true tzaddik, which we can learn from, is that he does everything for Hashem's sake. He doesn't do things for him to feel close to Hashem and love of Hashem in his terms, but he does everything for Hashem's sake, not how I will feel good about being close to Hashem, but what Hashem wants of me.
Wow.
But we can all do that. We can all do that. So you can love Hashem on your terms, meaning I want to feel spiritual, I want to feel godly, I want to meditate. Or you can love Hashem on Hashem's terms, meaning although it might not feel so spiritual to me, what does Hashem actually want from me right now?
Yes.
He might actually want from me what doesn't feel so spiritual, but that's what he wants. So two things about a true tzaddik, and Rabbi Shimon has brought us the example. Number one, he transforms the physical world, without not denying it, but transforming it. And number two, he does things for Hashem's sake. Yeah? So we can learn these things from him. But
so what qualities do we tap into on Lag BaOmer for ourselves?
I think the idea of giving space for others, not in a whatever floats your boat sense, but a sense of really loving a person and respecting the fact that they're allowed to be different. Respecting different direction. But also this idea of blending the physical and spiritual, of everything we do, we should be ruchni and we should be spiritual, we should be focused. All of this intensity has to be translated into the world. How are we transforming our physical experience? How are we transforming the mundane world around us? I mean, as women, it's quite, we're in the home, we do things in the house, we're dealing with the scrubbing and the whatever, and, it's also part of